This podcast is sponsored by Systems Accountants, a specialist global resourcing solutions company focused exclusively on accounting technology and finance transformation.
The majority of focus always seems to be placed on professional rugby players and their transition into business upon retirement. But what about former coaches making this crossover? Former defence coach at London Welsh, Richard Tonkin, recently experienced this transition when he made a move to one of the world's leading professional recruitment consultancies, Michael Page. Richard, thanks for taking the time to speak with us at the Rugby Business Network.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
Richard, before you became the defence coach at London Welsh, you started out as a performance analyst, first at London Wasps as an intern with the first team and later as the assistant for the main side competing in the Aviva Premiership, which then led you to the position of Head of Performance Analysis at London Welsh in 2014. For those who may not know, what is a performance analyst and why did this area of rugby interest you?
Performance analyst, you're basically responsible for looking at individual and team performances. Mm-hmm. So that can be anything from how they're getting on in training all the way through to how they're getting on in matches. We'd be responsible for providing stats on team and individual KPIs. So that may be looking at number of tackles made, number of tackles missed, passes completed, etc. And that's one side of it. The other side is you'd be looking at opposition footage and coming up with like a SWOT analysis of the upcoming opposition strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, and then providing recommendations to the coaches and players through trend analysis and observations. I got into it, I guess, during my time at university. So I did a coaching science degree, and I specialised in performance analysis. Everyone wanted to be the strength and conditioning fitness coaches, and everyone wanted to go down that route. And I thought I'd back the trend and look at the performance analysis side of things. And following that, I guess it was luck of the draw. Really, I went to a small conference at Loughborough University, and there was an internship that was offered from Wasps there, exclusively there. I rang the head analyst that day and said, I'm really keen. He invited me down and luckily enough offered me the internship for the year and then just progressed from there, really.
And as they say, the rest is history. Well, in July last year, you grabbed the opportunity to become the defence coach at London Welsh. How was the transition process for you being an analyst moving into a coaching role?
To be fair, I found it reasonably smooth. I think that was probably down to the environment that we had at London Welsh. I say it was smooth, like we had really good buy-in from the players. It was such a good group of people at the club that although, I didn't necessarily have the coaching experience, I think, the knowledge I'd gained over the last 4.5 years as an analyst stood me in good stead. But it was all about getting the players involved as much as possible, because at the end of the day, there was a lot of lads in the group that had way more experience than me. So it was, leaning on them as well to, have they got any good ideas that we can implement into the training and matches, and also, being supported by the other coaches. The experience that we had there, really supported me in that transition.
Well, following that transition, your 8 months as defence coach was by no means easy going, as during this period, London Welsh were liquidated and were removed from English Rugby's professional ranks. Did this in any way push you to pursuing a career away from rugby?
Yes and no, really. So probably about 6 months prior to me taking up the defensive responsibilities, I was looking at other avenues just in case the time came that I would have to step away from professional rugby. I did a few online searches. Obviously, I know about the RPA, which is predominantly, I guess, in the Premiership, but came across the Rugby Business Network, and I dropped an email just saying, I know you're kind of geared towards the players, but I'd be really interested to see if you were able to assist me with anything away from the rugby side of things. Obviously, he came back saying, yeah, we'll be happy to help. But I kind of set the ball rolling there. I didn't really know what I wanted to do away from rugby. I guess working in professional rugby is something I'd always wanted to do. So all of a sudden, thinking about an alternative to your dream job, if you like, was really difficult.
And that liquidation process, was it difficult? How did you handle it during that time?
From a rugby side of things, like I said, we had such a good group of players and staff. Like, we were very resilient in that time. It was it was rocky for, I don't know, probably a year. And we all rolled our sleeves up, came into work, got the job done, went home. We did that day in, day out. And I think for us to have been in the position we were in when we were eventually liquidated, and the end of the professional side of London Welsh, like, I don't think you would have been able to tell that was all going on behind the scenes, just from the guys' approach to the work every day. From a personal point of view, I did want to get into coaching eventually. I wasn't expecting to be given the opportunity so quickly. It would have maybe been 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line as opposed to last season. But it was mixed emotions, really. I guess the lack of stability, obviously at London Welsh, but also any other championship club maybe. And the limited opportunities within the Premiership and the other higher leagues kind of, actually I do need to look more seriously at moving away from the rugby and I guess getting a normal, if you like, job.
Well, not too long ago, Richard, in fact, during the first couple months of this year, you came to the Rugby Business Network, as you mentioned, seeking some advice through the Life After Rugby program. How did you hear about this program, and in what way did it help you?
I literally come across them on Google. Turns out a few of the players had. So there was a few other players that were there at London Welsh that had been in contact. In the first instance, I did something called a psychometric test with your skills and attributes that you've got from work that can translate into other business areas. But also, just getting your personality across. I think that's one of the biggest things I didn't realise, and how important that is. It's not just about selling your skills and your experience in terms of the job side of things, but also getting what you're like as a person across as well as going to these networking evenings, which I went to a couple.
Well, some people might be under the impression that the Life After Rugby program is only there to help current and former professional players transition into business through work placements. You, being a former coach, clearly puts this assumption to bed. Why would you recommend the Life After Rugby program to other coaches looking to transition into business?
The rugby in this day and age, I don't like comparing it to football, but it's getting a lot more cutthroat. There are a lot more coaches out there. There's a lot, it's a higher pressure environment, I would say. So, there's only a finite number of jobs, and I guess if you've got the money in the bank, savings, you can be a little less needy, or there's not as much pressure for you to go and find another job. But a big thing for me was the lack of stability. Going from fixed term contract to fixed term contract. You never know whether the money's going to dry up. Like what happened at London Welsh, and you literally never know. And I think looking at alternatives, you never know what's going to happen. You did have to move away from professional rugby. It's just that support and structure that it can provide, rather than you being out on your own trying to find something that you want to do without any direction.
Absolutely. Having the right support is fundamental. Well, the Life After Rugby program was successful for you, as for the last 3 months, if I'm not mistaken, you've been working at Michael Page as a consultant. What are your responsibilities there, and are you enjoying it thus far?
Yeah, so I guess if you were to go back to around Christmas time, I would not have been able to tell you I'll be working as a recruitment consultant. I was a bit apprehensive to begin with, but the more I looked into it, so Page Group is a FTSE 250 business, Michael Page Finance being the oldest industry that they look after. And, 3 months in, the transition has been surprisingly smooth, and I think that's purely down to the fact that, the way they work is as a team. You're not on your own. There's a lot. It's goal orientated. Like the translation from sport to my role at Michael Page there's very tangible similarities. But I'm basically responsible for qualified accountancy recruitment for West London and Middlesex. So if you're a qualified accountant, I'd be the consultant that would place you in those in West London and Middlesex. I guess as part of the transition and the business I wanted to join when I was going through the process of looking at alternatives to rugby, it was all about what the environment's like. So I said, that team environment was key and was going to provide me with the foundations to build a career. I didn't want another job, or I didn't want a job to then go from job to job. I did really want a career. And the going from, I guess, an experienced professional analyst and coach to being a complete novice, some would feel that could be quite difficult. But yeah, it's that training aspect was a really important factor in deciding, I guess, what the next step was going to be following the demise of London Welsh.
Richard, a moment ago you mentioned the word team, and it touches on my next question. Have there been any challenges for you transitioning from a sports team to the type of teams which exist in businesses, or are there more similarities than differences?
There's definitely more similarities. I guess working in sports, you're always driven, motivated, and I guess everyone's competitive. That really is the case. What I found at Michael Page is, everyone's there to do their job to the best of their ability. So, that drive and motivation and competitiveness is there. Obviously, the difference would be the working hours. Obviously, that's slightly different. But in terms of the actual environment, everyone's there to muck in and make sure the team's successful. Obviously, you've got more experienced people within your team that I guess act as the coaches. So my managers, they're always on hand to give me advice and assistance when I need it. The comparisons are, they're very similar in terms of the team environment.
Finally, Richard, what advice would you give rugby coaches specifically looking to transition into business?
So I'd say just be as proactive as you can be. So although I got the ball rolling, I guess just over a year before, I did have to take another role away from rugby. It's that, just spend some of your spare time going to networking events or speaking to people. Ultimately, I found that going to the networking events that the Rugby Business Network put on really helpful, just in terms of you're speaking to people in completely different industries, and it's just by having conversations, like trying to get an understanding of what they do, because I didn't have a clue really of the different roles that they're doing. But also it's just getting your name out there. Like, what I liked about the Rugby Business Network events is everyone is happy to help. You're not there kind of, trying to I guess, blag your way through it. Like, you're there and people want to help. So I think, getting out and about and meeting these people, especially if you don't really know what you'd want to do away from rugby, I found very helpful. But also, if you did know what you wanted to do, if you did move away from rugby, again, there will be someone either directly in the Rugby Business Network, or someone would know someone that would be able to help you. But it's just, spend some time when you make the time, basically, because otherwise, if push comes to shove and you're, out of contract, or the club's gone bust, or whatever the eventuality may be, that you're in a position then when you're like, actually, I don't know what I want to do, and I need to get a job, in a month's time or whatever. So yes, just be as proactive as you can be, I guess.
Well, Richard, your story is both interesting and unique, and we at the Rugby Business Network wish you all the success in your newly acquired role at Michael Page.
Thanks for your time, and that's much appreciated.